This is the Louie T Network.
The Redskins Report.
Welcome to a special edition of the Redskins Report. I'm your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me. The question I continue to ask myself over and over and over and over again is, how did we get here? How did we get here? A year ago, this time, I was sitting in front of my couch in anticipation for a huge Monday night matchup versus the New York Giants. One that we would ultimately win 17-16. Riding a 7-game winning streak into the postseason. Winning our first divisional crown since 1999. Beating the Cowboys in the season finale on national television for the division. Feeling this sense of, we've finally made it. We're no longer that joke of a franchise that is a punchline for everybody, that everyone gets to point and laugh at. We're actually a real NFL outfit. And I warned everybody in the offseason, take last season with a grain of salt. I really wanted to see what we would do this year with a big boy schedule. You win first place in your division, you're going to play a first place schedule. Wanted to see what we were going to do. I knew the Robert injury was going to be a setback, but I didn't anticipate this. I didn't see us falling back into the ways of Redskins years past. I keep asking myself, how did we get here? But this is about Robert Griffin III. Bust or rust? Which one is it? For me, it's simple. And I pose this question to you. You out there, Redskins fan, not a Redskins fan, you watching this video. Bust or rust? Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm not going to get mad. I can care less. Bust or rust? Which one is it for you? For me, it's simple. And it's funny. It's crazy for me to sit here and hear Redskins fans give up on this young man already. Not like we're in year 4 and he's progressively gotten worse. We're in year 2. Mind you, coming off of reconstructive knee surgery where he had no offseason. And I'm not here to make excuses for the young man. I'm not here to make excuses for Robert Griffin III. A lot of the transgressions and a lot of the problems that we have on this team right now stem from some of his wrongdoings, some of his misgivings. And again, he's 23 years old. Keep that in mind, okay? The level of maturity isn't what we thought it was when he first got here, okay? There are some things that he has to learn, and he's a young man. That's what happens, trial and error. You live and you learn. You make mistakes, you learn from those mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And again, I'm no Robert Griffin III apologist, because you go back and watch all of my shows, you go through the archive, and you'll see that I've been pounding this guy just like the rest of them. But He's a talent. There's no denying that, okay? For you to sit here and for a lot of people, and look, I'm not pointing out anybody individually. You know who you are. If you've been pointing the finger at Robert and saying, hey, we need to trade this guy, we need to get rid of him, then you simply just don't get it. You don't have a clue. Yeah, he struggled this year mightily. I mean, I've seen more open guys be missed. I've seen more misreads. I've seen more indecisiveness in the pocket than I've seen in a long time from any Redskins quarterback. And we've seen some pretty bad quarterbacks in Washington. But he's played really bad football this season. Now, is all of that mental? Is all of that physical? Is all of that because defenses have made adjustments? Who's to say? I can tell you this. That knee injury has a lot to do with his struggles this year. And let me explain why. And I'll give you my answer right now. He's not a bust. It's rust. But I'll tell you this much, and I'll explain myself here in a second. How can you explain this? 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, passer rating up over 100, completion percentage around 64%, 65, 66%, in a rookie campaign that sees him go 10-6, win 7 consecutive games, gets his team to the playoffs by winning the NFC East. That doesn't happen by luck. You want to talk about defenses not being able to adjust on the fly and them having trouble with the read option, and Robert didn't have to really do a lot last year but throw to wide open guys because teams were having trouble defending the read option. I'll listen to that because there's a lot of validity to that. But also in that same breath, you still had to be accurate. And he was deadly accurate last season, okay? How about that Dallas game? How about that rollout throw to Santana Moss in the end zone? Was that wide open? Was that not a stick throw? Back shoulder in the end zone? You tell me. He made some pinpoint accurate throws a season ago. What about that Giants game in New York in his rookie season, 2012? Had to have it. Down 4 in that game. We need a score to put us ahead. It's 4th and 10. Gotta have it. That's athleticism, that's accuracy, that's everything you're looking for in a franchise QB on one play on display. What about the throw to Santana Moss to put us ahead in that game? That should have won us that football game. That's accuracy. So don't tell me that he's not accurate. What about that Eagles game in Philadelphia? The week after he had sat out, Kirk Cousins led us to a victory. He comes back on one bad wheel. What about that throw to Santana Moss in the corner of the end zone? You can't throw it any better. That's a professional quarterback throw. That's a Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Tom Brady-esque throw. You can't throw it any better than that. You can't breastfeed a receiver any better than he did Santana Moss. That's the best throw I've ever seen Robert make in his career. Accuracy. So don't tell me this guy isn't accurate, because he was everything and then some last year. He was all of that last season. He didn't just lose that overnight. That's because of the injury. That's because of the rust. That's because he didn't have time to properly bring himself back. He rushed, and yes, he did this to himself. He rushed the process back. And so by virtue of that, this is your end result. But don't tell me he's not an accurate quarterback, because he is. But I could go on, and I could give you more proof that this guy's an accurate passer of the football, but I'm not going to sit here and do that all day. You do your own homework. You do your own due diligence. Okay? Look, a large portion of his throws were easy reads to wide open guys running off of play action, defenses biting up, linebackers moving up, creating a void behind them for a wide open Pierre Garçon, for a wide open Fred Davis, for a wide open Logan Paulson, for a wide open Leonard Hankerson. Yeah, there were a lot of wide open targets last season. But in the same breath, he was hitting the deep ball. How many times did he hit Aldrick Robinson on deep balls last year? That takes accuracy. How many times did he hit guys who were covered with accurate balls on them so that they could catch it and make something happen after the run? That's accuracy, okay? Not all of his throws were easy point and click throws. He had to make some tough stick throws last year, and he made them with accuracy. He was decisive last year. But again, the decisiveness came from having easy reads. This year, teams have made adjustments. He struggled. But again, I think this knee injury and the lack of him having preparation in the offseason is starting to take its toll, because I've seen bad mechanics from him this year. Something that I didn't see last season, okay? I'm seeing him not properly transfer his weight, not stepping into throws the way he should. Balls are being short-armed. Balls are sailing on him. That's all because of footwork, okay? If you know anything about quarterbacking, if you've watched football for a long extended period of time, you know that if your footwork isn't right, then the ball isn't going to come out right. And if you're overcompensating for a knee injury and you start developing bad habits, things will happen. And I swear, that is what has happened to him over the last year. He's developed some really nasty habits. And along the way, those habits have formed and manifested themselves into a much larger problem. This offensive line stinks. You look at this offensive line from the center over to the right tackle, all could be replaced. Center, right guard, right tackle. Easily could all be replaced. All of them have done poor jobs protecting Robert Griffin III this season. All of them. But it doesn't just stop there. You look at his indecisiveness in the pocket. A lot of that stems from not being able to make reads. And a lot of times, I think that's something that can be fixed. That's something that maturity and being in an offense for multiple years, which him switching offenses in this next upcoming year is going to happen, and he's going to have to, make that adjustment to a new scheme and a new offense. So he could struggle again. Who's to say? But I tell you this much. He wasn't a guy that had to make a lot of reads at Baylor. He didn't have to make a lot of reads in his first season. And so I expected him to struggle with making reads. Once teams made adjustments to the play action fake and it wasn't open, he was going to have to make different reads and go through his progressions quickly. That is something that he definitely needs to work on. That is something that has nothing to do with the knee. That's something that has nothing to do with this offensive line. You go through your progressions. If it's not there, you check it down. I can look and show you so many different clips and so many different plays of where he's got a check down outlet, or he's got somebody that's a safety valve on a play where if it's not open, if you don't like what you see, you got 2.5 seconds, cut the ball loose. Get it to the fullback on the check down. Get it to the running back on the check down. Get it to the tight end on the check down. Get rid of the football. Again, Rich Gannon to me has one of the best sayings in terms of a quarterback just getting positive yardage on a play and using your check down. You can't go broke making a profit. And so if it's 2nd and 10, there's nothing wrong with dumping it down to the back for 4 yards and making it 3rd and 6 instead of it being 3rd and 10. Instead of you scrambling for 1 yard and it being 3rd and 9. Take the check down, move on. And so those are things that he has to work on. That's all part of the maturation process. But to give up on this guy after a season, how dare you? You can't, and I'm hearing, trade this guy, do this, do that. You can't get the value back that we spent to get him, even if that was something that was a realistic possibility. You're not getting 2 first-rounders and a second in exchange for Robert now. So unless you're willing to take considerably less to give him away and start from scratch, what do you have? If you got something better, show me. And we'll find out what Kirk Cousins is, but I don't feel like he's the answer. I feel like he's trade bait is what Kirk Cousins is. He's not the answer to our quarterbacking issues right now. He's the answer to helping us fill out this roster. That's what Kirk Cousins is. Robert Griffin III is a talent. He's got a strong arm. He's got the mental intellect to be able to play the quarterback position at a high level. He's got the arm strength. He's got the arm talent. He's got the wheels. We'll see that again next year when he's fully healthy and able to run. You can't sit here and tell me that his inability to threaten defenses with his legs didn't have an impact on how teams played him this season. That's a huge part of why he struggled mightily this year. Because if I come to you and you're really good at your job, and I take away the one thing that you're extremely good at, that makes you better than most people at your job at, what do? How do you adjust? It's hard for someone to walk up to you and say, hey, you know what? You are an excellent musician. You hear better than anyone else. You hear things and melodies that other people simply can't hear. So what if I come to you and I take some of your hearing from you? And you can't hear as well. Now, you can still read music, you can still compose, you can still do all those things, but you don't hear everything the way you used to. It's not the same. And I look at Robert and defenses and the way they have been playing him this year, they're just, hey, let's just keep him in the pocket. Easier said than done when the man can outrun you. But when I know he's looking for the sidelines, he can't outrun me, it's easier to defend him. It's easier to not be aggressive, to not come after him, to be at home on the bootleg because he can't outrun you. How many times last season did guys have the angle on him and he just flat out outrun their angle? I could recall so many different times it seemed like Jason Pierre-Paul or O.C. Umenyor had an angle on this guy and he just simply outran him. Just outran him. They couldn't catch him. I seen DeMarcus Ware have an angle, couldn't catch him. This year, that's not the case. If you've got the angle, you got Robert because he can't get away. Next year, when the athleticism comes back, that's another dimension that defenses will have to prepare for. If it's not there, guess what? He can tuck it and run, and trust me, he won't be looking for the sidelines. He won't be looking for somewhere to fall down. He'll get 25 yards, and then he'll get out of bounds. He'll get 17 yards, and then he'll slide down. This year, he'll get 3 yards, and somebody starts running at him, and he know he can't get away. So he'll start making a beeline for out of bounds. I mean, that's not productive. That's not who he is as a quarterback. Now, I think all of the other things with time will come. The accuracy will come back because the mechanics will be back to where it needs to be because the mechanics, they're garbage right now. They're in the dumps. Because of that knee injury, he started overcompensating and he started doing some bad things with his footwork. And the end result are low passes, high passes, inaccurate passes. Guys are wide open and he's missing them. He was hitting them last year. End of discussion. It's not like he has always been wildly inaccurate and this year has really spotlighted that. He was accurate last season when he was healthy. He gets injured and now he's not healthy. There's a direct correlation there. So miss me with all of the, oh, this guy can't play the quarterback position. He's not making reads. He's inaccurate. He's this, he's that. Sure. Look, I can't defend him on everything. There are certain things he just has to work on. But I tell you this much. He's not a bust. He'll be fine. And he's got a lot of things to work on mechanically. But a lot of his issues this year stem from the injury. And there's no debating that. You can't tell me that a guy that threw for as many yards as he did last year, for 20 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions, you can't tell me that a guy like that, with the accuracy that he had last year, just all of a sudden can't play the quarterback position. Yeah, defenses made adjustments. Guys weren't as wide open. But again, I challenge you to go back and look at Robert Griffin III tape from a season ago. I challenge you to go back. There's plenty of tape out there. Do your own homework. Don't just sit there and be a Monday morning quarterback. Do your own homework. I've done plenty of homework. Go back and watch his throws from his rookie campaign. Go watch some of these stick throws that he had to make. He made some impressive throws a season ago. Not all of them were the wide open players on play action fake over the middle of the field. A lot of them were. Okay, 60% of his throws last season, 65 maybe even, were to wide open guys. Go look at the other 35% and tell me, is that a guy that's inaccurate? Is that a guy that can only throw to wide open receivers? Because I beg to differ after you watch that tape. So don't be somebody that from afar wants to pass judgment on this young man and not give him a chance. Now look, there's a lot of things he's got to clean up off the field. I mean, he's got to be a better spokesman off the field. He's got to be a better leader. He's got to know what he can and can't say out of his mouth. But that has nothing to do with the play on the field. Now, over time, I think he'll get better at that as well. But right now, we're concerned about Robert Griffin III, the quarterback, the guy that's supposed to be leading us on the field. Does he need to be benched right now? Look, I don't believe one word of what Mike Shanahan is saying in terms of, yeah, we're benching him for his health. This is all because of what Mike Shanahan wants to do on his way out of the door. He wants to throw this in the face of everyone in Redskins Nation, Daniel Snyder, Robert Griffin III and his family. He wants to throw this in their face. He wants Kirk Cousins to go out, be successful in these last 3 games, win 2 out of 3 of them, look good and impressive in doing so, and show everybody that, hey, this is what we could have had if Robert would have been competent in our offense this year. But he wasn't, so we struggled. And I just want you to know that I'm still one hell of a coach. My son can call football plays, and we're an excellent duo. And if somebody else wants to give us a gig, we'll turn your team around just like we did with Kirk Cousins here at the end of this season. So that's what this is about. This is all a self-serving purpose here on the way out the door to say, I told you so. I can still coach. My son can still call offensive plays. This offense isn't as bad as you think it is. That was Robert. This is what this is about. So he's trying to stick it to a lot of people on the way out of the door. I don't care about that. I'm looking at it from the perspective of a Redskins fan. I'm not going anywhere. Mike Shanahan isn't going to be here after 3 weeks. He's gone. So he could care less. I'm looking at this from a Redskins perspective. And as a Redskins fan, I'm glad he's sitting Robert down. Because for the last 2 weeks, all I keep thinking in my head is, I pray that he doesn't get injured to end this season. Because then it'll be the same thing all over again. That's all I could keep saying to myself is, please don't get injured. He's been taking a pounding. And all I could do is hold my breath every time he would run, because all it takes is one. All it takes is one shot, and we're back to where we were last season with a Robert Griffin III that's mending an injury and not preparing for the upcoming season. So I don't want to do that again. So I don't have a problem with this. And if you look at it from a Redskins fan perspective, you got 2 things that can come of this good other than Robert Griffin III sitting down and not getting injured. Even though I don't buy for 1 second that that's the reason why Mike Shanahan is doing this. But I'll take that because I really don't want to see Robert get hurt. I want him to work on his fundamentals. I want him to work on his mechanics. I want him to get better as a quarterback. And maybe him sitting down and watching, it won't hurt him. Because if Kirk comes in and he's taking the check down and he's making smart decisions, maybe Robert will say, hey, I need to implement some of that into my game as well. So I'm hoping that he does a little bit of that as well. But if you're a Redskins fan, 2 things can come of this. Either we'll find out that Kirk Cousins is a damn good quarterback, and I think we already feel that way, but we really haven't seen a lot of Kirk Cousins. You'll see more than enough of him in these last 3 games, and you'll be able to make a sound decision on whether he's a good quarterback or not. And another thing is, if he plays well, he raises that trade value. Now, again, I think that Charlie Casserly hit it on the head when he said that the trade value for Kirk Cousins last season would have probably been a lot higher than it's going to be this year because of the amount of quarterbacks coming out that people feel really strongly about this year versus last year. Last year, there wasn't a definitive first-round, quarterback. So Kirk Cousins in the mix could have been very enticing to some teams a season ago. This year, you got a slew of quarterbacks coming out, some better than others, but a lot of people believe in these quarterbacks that are coming out this year. And so to trade Kirk Cousins this year, I don't know what you get for him. Last year, you might have even been able to scrap a 1 for him. This year, I don't know if you can even get 2 2s for him. And if I can't get 2 2s for Kirk, I don't want to give him away. I'm not giving away Kirk Cousins. I'm trading him away. And there's a huge difference. You can give away a player for a hot ham and cheese sandwich in a juice box. I mean, I've seen guys leave teams for a 5th-round selection and they swap 7s. I don't want to do that. I'm not looking for a 4th or a 5th or a 6th-round pick. I don't want that. You can keep your bag of chips and your hot ham and cheese sandwich. I want to actually trade Kirk Cousins. I actually want some value for Kirk Cousins. I want 2 2s or I want a 1. And so he needs to go out, execute the offense, show that he can get it done at a high level in the National Football League, and raise his trade value so that we can get something for him, because we need to improve in a lot of areas. And that'll be the best way to do it. And I don't know if we'll get anything for him this year. Because, again, think the market for the QBs coming into the draft is extremely high. A lot of people feel good about these quarterbacks, so I don't know if a team will be willing to give up what we'll be asking for Kirk Cousins this season. But if he's on display, he plays well, and he doesn't play at all next year because Robert is tearing it up, he'll still be there, and teams will know what he can bring to their table, and we might be able to get something for him maybe next season. So I don't know. But I leave it in your hands. Bust or rust. For me, it's simple. It's no way it's a bust when your first season was dynamic and your second season, you could chalk it up to a sophomore slump. You could chalk it up to, and it's funny because you look at his numbers and they're not all that bad, but numbers don't really tell the story. If you've watched the games, you've seen open receivers, you've seen the indecisiveness. He's gotten progressively worse as this year has went on, and a lot of that has to do with him being shell-shocked in the pocket, knowing that he's about to take a shot. He's not making smart decisions and reads. He's playing like a man that has been scarred. And so him sitting down for these final 3 games, I don't have a problem with it. Him getting out of this system that Mike Shanahan is running, I don't have a problem with it. I want to see him work on his mechanics. It doesn't matter what system you're in. If your mechanics stink, it's going to affect the way you play on the field. And that knee injury affected his play this season. No doubt about it. Okay? Forget about not making reads and not making quick decisions. Accuracy has nothing to do with making reads or not making sound decisions or quick ones. That has nothing to do with accuracy. Accuracy is on its own. It stands on its own, and he wasn't accurate this year. And that is a direct correlation to the knee injury, if you ask me. So there's no bust here. The man is only in his second season. He's going into his third next year. He'll have a full offseason of work, a chance to get better as a quarterback. We've invested way too much in him to give up on him now. Are you crazy? If you're a Redskins fan and you've already jumped off the Robert Griffin III bandwagon, if you've already jumped off and you've already tried to take him back to the store, you have no receipt because you threw the receipt. Like myself, when we bought Robert Griffin III, you got the receipt and you crumbled it up, you threw it in the trash because you knew you had what you were looking for. After he played the way he did last season, you threw that receipt in the trash. It's long gone. But if you're one of those ones, despite not having a receipt, despite using this man up last season and how he was able to galvanize this team and take us to a championship in terms of the NFC East and our first home playoff game in over a decade, despite using him up for all of that, and you can't sit here and tell me you weren't all excited about what he was able to bring to the table last year. Despite all of that, you're ready to take him back to the store and see if you can exchange him for something else. If you're willing to do that already, shame on you. Shame on you. Because it's not just him. There's a lot of dysfunctionality going on around Redskins Park. He's got a lot of things he's got to work on. Again, I'm not absolving him from all wrongdoing here in this situation. He's got a lot of things he's got to work on. But I tell you one thing. He's not a bust. This year simply was rust. He'll be better. He'll work on his game. He'll come back stronger than ever next season. He'll be the dual threat quarterback that we know he can be. He'll run around. He'll make plays with his legs. He'll make plays with his arm. You'll see the real Robert Griffin III next season. I guarantee you that. For all of you who have doubts, believe that Robert Griffin III will be back at full strength next season, playing much better football. I guarantee it. So, I'm a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. My Redskins spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to the Redskins. I'll see you next time. This was a special Redskins report.
The Redskins report.